There are nights that are supposed to end with laughter, confetti swept from sidewalks, and quiet drives home under fading fireworks. And then there are nights that follow people for the rest of their lives. Nights that do not end when the clock strikes midnight, but instead begin a chain of consequences no apology can reverse. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to see how far this conversation is reaching. It was still dark when the city learned that New Year's Eve had not ended cleanly for everyone. While most people were waking up on January 1st with tired smiles and leftover resolutions, one family was already carrying the weight of sirens, flashing lights, and a phone call no parent ever wants to receive. At 2:30 in the morning, long after the countdown had faded into memory, a collision tore through a quiet Providence intersection. Metal screamed, glass scattered, a car spun where it should not have, and in that instant, celebration turned into consequence. The driver who caused it was 26 years old. He was the son of the sitting mayor. His name was Brandon Taylor. He had been drinking heavily, convinced that the rules of the road softened on holidays, persuaded that New Year's Eve was not a night bound by ordinary law. When police arrived, they found him still wearing party beads, novelty headgear, and a confidence that did not match the wreckage around him. His blood alcohol level would later confirm what his slurred speech already revealed. He was more than twice the legal limit. The man whose car he struck was 70 years old. His name was William Chen. He was a veteran who had spent the evening doing what he had done for 2 decades, serving food to other veterans who had nowhere else to go. He was driving home carefully, following the lights, respecting the speed limit, believing that after a lifetime of service, he had earned the simple right to arrive home safely. Instead, he was taken to the hospital. His car would never be driven again. 2 days later, on January 2nd, the courtroom doors opened. Providence Municipal Court carried its usual quiet seriousness that morning. Papers rested neatly. Shoes echoed faintly across polished floors. There was nothing festive about the space, nothing forgiving, nothing inclined toward excuses. When Brandon Taylor walked in, however, he seemed unaware of that shift. He wore expensive casual clothing, a designer hoodie still stamped with cheerful New Year wishes, as though the night had been nothing more than an overextended party. He did not move with fear. He did not move with shame. He moved like someone who expected understanding. Behind him sat his parents. The mayor of Providence, Thomas Taylor, looked smaller than his title suggested. His wife sat stiffly beside him, her worry visible in every still movement. They watched their son step forward as the bailiff announced the case, and with each word spoken aloud, the reality pressed closer. Driving under the influence, reckless driving, leaving the scene of an accident. Judge Frank Caprio lifted his eyes from the file and studied the young man in front of him. There was no rush in his movement, no anger yet, just attention. When he asked how Brandon wished to plead, the answer came easily. Not guilty. The explanation followed immediately, offered with the kind of casual confidence that makes a room grow colder. Brandon spoke as if he were explaining a misunderstanding rather than responding to criminal charges. It was New Year's Eve, he said. Everyone was celebrating. Everyone was drinking. These things happened every year. His tone suggested that the court itself was being unreasonable for even questioning it. Judge Caprio did not raise his voice. He did not interrupt. He asked a simple question instead. How was driving drunk into a 70-year-old man's car and injuring him something that should be minimized? Brandon shrugged. He spoke about timing, about the early hours of the morning, about leaving a celebration hosted by his father. He described champagne at midnight, crowds, tradition. He framed his choices as part of a cultural ritual, as though the calendar itself bent the law. New Year's, he insisted, was different. It was understood. One night where rules relaxed because everyone was celebrating. The courtroom listened. The judge listened. And then he clarified something that should never need to be clarified. Drinking and driving is illegal every day of the year. Brandon nodded, but his agreement was thin. He explained that while that might be technically true, there was an unspoken understanding. He said his father always talked about New Year's as a reset, a night that did not count, a free pass before life started again in the morning. He spoke as if this belief had been taught, repeated, normalized. At that moment, the story stopped being only about a crash. Judge Caprio asked to hear from William Chen. The older man stood slowly. Every movement carried effort. His voice, however, was steady. He explained who he was, where he had been that night, and why he had been driving so late. He spoke about service, about routine, about responsibility. He described obeying the traffic signal, about seeing headlights too late to react. He did not dramatize his injuries. He did not exaggerate his pain. He simply told the truth. He ended by saying that he spent New Year's in a hospital bed because someone decided a holiday excused dangerous behavior. The room was silent when he finished. Then Brandon spoke again. He said he felt bad. He called it an accident. He said accidents happened on New Year's. He suggested that insurance existed for this reason. He added that his father could make sure everything was handled quietly. There was no malice in his voice, only entitlement. He did not understand why this needed to become criminal. The reaction was immediate. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Judge Caprio raised his hand and restored order. Then he asked a question that shifted the ground beneath the entire proceeding. Did Brandon just suggest that the mayor would use city resources to resolve his son's criminal conduct? Brandon looked confused by the concern. He explained that this was how things worked for families of public officials, that his father handled situations like this, especially on holidays, especially on New Year's. At that point, the judge requested the video evidence. The screen lit up with footage from the intersection. The images were clear. The signal was red. The speed was excessive. The impact was undeniable. There was no ambiguity, no gray area. When the video ended, Judge Caprio described exactly what it showed and asked Brandon to confirm it. Brandon did not deny it. He explained it away. He blamed excitement, energy, the spirit of the night. He admitted to drinking. He repeated that it was New Year's Eve. When asked about leaving the scene, he said he had been calling his father. The body camera footage followed. The courtroom heard Brandon's own voice from the night of the crash. Heard him tell the officer that New Year's did not count. Heard him invoke his father's title. Heard him claim that mayors' families received courtesy. When the audio stopped, the judge asked where that idea came from. Brandon looked at his father before answering. He spoke about years of watching his father host city celebrations, about speeches, about repeated phrases, about hearing, again and again, that New Year's was special, a night to be free, a night where people did not worry about small things. The mayor shifted uncomfortably. When the judge addressed him directly, the room seemed to hold its breath. Had he told his son that New Year's was a free pass? The mayor stood. His answer was careful. He spoke of philosophy, of symbolism, of fresh starts. He denied ever encouraging illegal behavior. His son interrupted him, insisting that these words were spoken every year publicly at city events. The prosecution confirmed that others had heard similar remarks. That was when Judge Caprio made a decision rarely seen in a courtroom. He asked the clerk to place an immediate call to the Providence City Council, which was in session that very day. Brandon's confidence vanished. His father protested. The judge did not waver. If the mayor was being accused of promoting an idea that endangered public safety, the council needed to hear it directly. The speakerphone crackled to life. Voices filled the courtroom from the council chamber. The judge explained the situation carefully, precisely, without embellishment. He described the crash, the statements, the belief that New Year's excused the law. He asked if the mayor was present and ensured the conversation was public. Council members responded with shock, then seriousness. They asked direct questions. They referenced past events, speeches, city-funded celebrations. They acknowledged the implications. Within minutes, they requested time to deliberate. The phone line stayed open. The courtroom listened to muffled urgency. The former mayor sat with his head in his hands. His son stared forward, finally understanding that words spoken casually can destroy entire lives. When the council returned, their decision was unanimous. The mayor was removed from office effective immediately. The words landed with finality. There was no appeal in that moment, no delay. 6 years of leadership ended in less than 5 minutes. The council announced further actions, investigations, and policy changes. The call ended. Silence followed. Judge Caprio turned back to Brandon. He explained that his father had lost his position because of the belief Brandon claimed he was taught. Then he issued the sentence. Jail time, probation, license revocation, treatment, restitution. Brandon cried openly. He said he never meant to destroy his father's career. The judge responded calmly. Intent did not erase impact. New Year's Eve, he said, was not an excuse to endanger lives. As Brandon was led away, his father approached the bench, no longer introduced by title. He apologized. He acknowledged carelessness. He accepted responsibility. William Chen spoke one last time. He reminded the court that holidays are meant to honor life, not gamble with it. That service does not stop for celebration. That safety should never be seasonal. Weeks later, policies changed. Statements were issued. Lessons were written in permanent ink. Years later, Brandon apologized face to face, and this time, he understood. If this story made you stop, think, or question what we excuse and why, subscribe for more moments that remind us. Accountability does not take holidays off.